Om Shanti. Om Shanti. We understand the signs of spiritual, of physical well-being. Science reminds us of those signs. But do we understand the signs of spiritual well-being? Healthy in spirit. Science cannot measure the well-being of the soul. They can't even find the soul. In silence, I can begin to understand the self as a spiritual being and the health by the soul. The health of my heart, a healthy heart overflows with enthusiasm, creativity, generosity, and of course, love. All the different shades of love. Unconditional, pure love. But sometimes the spiritual heart can suffer a heart attack, disheartenment, and this blocks the flow of enthusiasm, of creativity, of generosity, and of course of love, even for the self. There is disheartenment. How can I restart, resuscitate, refresh my own heart at those times? Unblock the heart. With the physical heart, a charge is used to restart, resuscitate the heart. And the same applies for the spiritual heart. Some sort of injection or charge, current is required. The moment I begin to feel disheartened, unenthusiastic, that the flow is blocked, immediately I need to stop and connect. Remember the wonder of the self and the wonder of who I am eternally connected to. The source of love, source of light, pumping life back into my heart. Connect to the divine within the self and the one who is ever divine, the Supreme Soul, this current of purity can bring my heart back online. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Good evening. Welcome to Into the Raj Yogi. Tonight's topic is spiritual resuscitation. And so it's just reflecting on this aspect of, you hear that in physical examples and CPR, and about resuscitating the heart, bringing life back to an individual. So it's really reflecting on Raj Yoga and bringing life back to the heart, to the soul. And perhaps maybe a part of thinking about there's a lot of hopelessness in the world. And what is required is for that kind of bringing life back, bringing hope back. When many probably don't want to listen to a lecture in this point of time.
They may not want to listen to
They may not want to listen. Yeah, so maybe they don't want to listen to this. Maybe they want some resuscitation right now. So it's really thinking about coming back to life, and really it felt like so much about walking the talk. But that connection between truth, because sometimes things can get quite intellectual, but not really actually bringing something back to life inside, bringing that spark back, a sense of what is this offering.
A couple of days ago, let us know if the volume is not okay. A couple of days ago, we had a lesson on enthusiasm. And enthusiasm, I believe from the Greek, to be filled with the energy of God, which doesn't mean we become God, but this connection, this link to that being fills the soul with a current, enthusiasm. And it really feels like it's the energy needed of this time, that there's actually almost entropy in the world. And so we need to have enthusiasm to just remain creative and constructive. And there's many elements, ingredients that go into enthusiasm. But the question was asked when we had this lesson of what's the opposite of enthusiasm. And the first word that came into my mind was disheartenment. This idea of the heart stopping, if you will, or being attacked, or lack of heart, disheartened. The conversation actually was on lack of interest, but in my heart, it felt like disheartenment on one side, enthusiasm on the other. And what's needed to bring that energy back into the heart. So I like the word enthusiasm because it suggested there needs to be some kind of connection or current from, whether you say God or divine or truth. The term we heard this morning was Praneshwar, the Lord of Life, but that some connection with something outside of my day to day. It's actually connecting too much with the ordinary that's disheartening me. I need to connect with something purposeful, larger than life, sacred, beyond the small picture, if you will, something that really inspires me to bring that injection into the heart. So I think that might be the call of the time. Enthusiasm through connecting to something big, as big as God, if you will.
It's interesting. Thank you, Sister Ben. Just let us know if audio goes awry. But we were having a conversation yesterday, the day before, about intellectual versus feeling what's real. And when there's disheartenment, and it's interesting talking about connection, because when there's disheartenment, that whatever is going to basically resuscitate has to be powerful. And so there was a conversation about maybe when you were talking about ordinariness, is it possible that maybe the heart gets a little bit damaged, maybe a little bit of leakage, but when there's like a big attack, a big hit, what do you do at that time? As if you can't even have a connection.
Yeah, we have this idea that there's a separation between head and heart when we say intellectual. I'm not sure I fully buy into that, a separation of head and heart, because I think my head's actually necessary to get to the heart. I think I need to have understood in a meaningful way. So we now know there's intellect and intellectual. It's actually ego, not the head, but ego that's interfering in things, penetrating the heart. So how do I get through that blockage? And the suggestion we've been making, we've been exploring for quite a few weeks now, is self-respect. So I need to receive very deeply, if you will. It needs to come through the head. It needs to be some new knowledge, if you will, but it needs to penetrate very deeply. So the head and heart working together and not getting blocked or numbed. So it's not really it's not penetrating, because ego is blocking it. But yeah, the self-respect is a huge injection into the heart.
There was a question one of the senior students was asking in the interview. I think it was Eric, was asking Sister Mohini. But he was saying something when somebody was really angry. And you tell them, oh, try to be peaceful. And when there's a lot of ego, oh, you should try not to have arrogance. I don't know if that's what you said, but like at that moment, I don't know how receptive that is. The reason I was thinking about this in terms of resuscitation, and was suddenly thinking about your grade 1 teacher. You know, and first of all, how much are you articulate when you're in grade 1, right? But you would often refer to her, you know, these are little children. She was a grade 1 teacher, but just the way you describe what she was like with these children, it felt like as if it was a form of resuscitation. But it wasn't really actually, you know, I guess you can say any knowledge, I suppose you can say, what's happening. And so, which is why I find it an example what Eric was sharing about when someone's feeling a certain way, you know, to be able to have that power for someone to be able to be uplifted, but also on an internal level to be able to do that with yourself as well.
I suppose that, you know, the word we would use if heart and head were connected, so it's because it is a question of power, is wisdom. And that's really when it's useful. So it's not that head is bad, it's just ego stops it from getting into our bones, wisdom. And I'm always kind of fascinated when it comes to the physical heart and resuscitation. And they talk about what's the recovery rate if you're just doing manual CPR. It's very, very low. What is the recovery rate if you bring in a defibrillator, something that will deliver an electric charge? It improves dramatically. So this power of a current is to me, you know, if someone is very peaceless and you say be peaceful and it doesn't work, I speculate, I put it out there, if one of the original students of Raj Yoga, who we've referred to in the past, who really had very powerful, I wonder if they said it, if it would work, because I really feel they had a real current happening, that their, not even words, but their presence or their drishti. We certainly have heard these stories of Brahma Baba, that there was this capacity to really transform the atmosphere. So having to really deliver a current, because I'm connected with head and heart to such a source of power.
It's interesting you're sharing, talking about the original genes, and it's thinking about maybe it's both that combination of self-respect and that connection. Because there was, I don't know how many have heard of this sharing from Danny Jenkins, but she did share at one point in time in her journey that she was standing by the ocean and she just had this thought that I don't think I can keep going. But then another powerful thought really felt like it was from God saying, yes, you can. And if anyone knows much about Daddy Jenkins, she's had so many different challenges and so many different obstacles. And I was thinking about, for her to, like, what part does she play in having to resuscitate her heart, given all the things that she had gone through, in terms of us being inspired to be able to do that for ourselves, and then therefore for others.
Back to that sort of enthusiasm and energy, the energy of God or from God. And there's really two ways that that being is trying to deliver a current to us. One is to tell us current events. So one is through spiritual wisdom, and the other is through power of purity or yoga. Those are really the two materials that that being has. So whether it's Daddy Janki or any of us, if we're starting to wilt or lose heart, those are really the two avenues that that injection is going to come, either restoring the faith of the self on a really deep level, or an injection of purity in some way needs to happen. That vibration that's so clean needs to get to the soul. And I really feel, that that's so much what those original students became able to do for others, is, and I feel they're actually still doing it, is really radiating a vibration that's so uplifting, so pure. It's actually stopping. The world might be in a much worse place if they weren't doing that work. So definitely to get a piece of information that's really uplifting can work, and also to get an injection of pure power.
The reason why I was thinking of Danny Jenkins, because her recognition of God was just so clear. But the obstacles that she was facing, it's quite intense, actually. And maybe even also the challenges she had faced when she had come to London as well. And I don't know if that was around the time when she had that thought that crossed her mind. It didn't really matter, but to be able to keep that clarity of what one recognizes in the face of obstacles, that you don't see those obstacles and internalize them and start to, I suppose, have that color your own vision. It seems like quite a journey. It doesn't seem like it's maybe only one single moment of spiritual resuscitation. I don't know, maybe it's like a journey.
I definitely feel it's ongoing heart care. That there's a regular practice. It's the same with the body. A regular practice of heart care according to very specific directions. So to really be able to experience a pure state, which is beyond all the heaviness that really, it's funny because when the physical heart is healthy, you know, it's beating, etc. But I often feel that with the spiritual heart, yes, it's deeply moved, etc. But actually, how still can it become is a sign of actually being very, very healthy. It can really absorb silence and stillness. I think it's becoming very, very powerful. So we say that it's in silence that we can measure the health of the spiritual heart.
When you were sharing, I was thinking about the class and the second top student very recently, and she was sharing all sorts of challenges coming up, but to really understand they've emerged because of their past story. And of course, we can't really get ourselves in the head of someone like Daddy Jenkins. She's just an example, but one's own, I guess, challenges in life. I found that quite significant as she was talking about that, because it would, how to be able to see that and not feel bad about it. In the sense with Daddy Jenkins, she could have felt like as if she was at a disadvantage, I suppose, compared to some of the other original jewels.
It's interesting when you look at becoming disheartened. It's actually our own thinking and attitudes that are making it eventually happen. We could say, this situation disheartened me, or that situation. When I was at this retreat recently, we were connected with a soul coming from New York, and she was sharing so many one after the other incidents that which probably wear most people down. But she has a wonderful attitude that keeps her really enthusiastic. It's a very appreciative attitude, very enthusiastic. And so this is the current of knowledge, is it's meant to keep us in a headspace where we can take care of our attitudes. Yes, attitude comes from awareness, but all of this has to be taught to us, not to be intellectual, but to become something very practical, not nice ideas, but actually care of the self. So I'm, able, have the capacity. And then the more time I'm accumulating silence and purity, the more power I have to honor those points of wisdom, to really naturally maintain an attitude so that whatever is going on, it doesn't affect that attitude. And it's not in denial. I just have a wisdom that enables me to see things very naturally in a very different way. Small thing, as I was coming here, by accident, the water bottle dropped and it crushed the watch. So the watch is the face of the watch. And I remember I kept looking at it and saying, there has to, it was just such a 100% conviction that this happened for such a good reason. I'm excited to know what, like there wasn't, okay, I have the, but it depends how deeply, because there's that power of purity, how deeply have I been able to take in that current of wisdom. So taking care of one's attitudes is critical in heart care and maintaining enthusiasm.
I know this is so I know we're running close in time, but maybe just an example, but something that one cares so much about, let's say transformation, I care so much about that, and someone comes to you and says, you haven't changed at all. like it's fascinating how certain things can really create that level of disheartenment, to be able to, as you were saying, overcome that. It's quite, so it felt all very connected in terms of giving a donation of life or experiencing that I'm receiving a donation of life, especially for when you talked about self-respect. Like the key piece that seems like souls are struggling with is a lack of worth. And when that gets hit, it seems like it's like the bullet of all bullets.
So when we talk about the current or power of purity, that's what self-worth is. It is purity within the self, pure consciousness or attitudes towards the self, pure feeling about the self. And as you were sharing, I was remembering the example that's been often given by Mohini Didi, so we can see the head and heart working together. Because there is the purity of self-worth in that soul, if someone says something to them, the wisdom works because it's got that worth, that purity there, so that that soul isn't disheartened. They're able to naturally separate what are the sanskaras of that soul and what actually is relevant to them. They don't just take it on all, because the heart is weak, but it's like, okay, I know that part of that is their issues, and there might be something useful that I can take from that, but I know where the line is between what we call their sanskars, their issues, and what is relevant. And that is a reflection, a demonstration of self-worth. So the power of purity is there after taking that heart care, that time to accumulate the power of purity, the wisdom will work properly.
So it sounds very inspiring that it's a journey.
I think any process of healing is a journey, and the speed of the healing depends on how well I'm able to follow the instructions of the healer.
Well, as much as I would like to continue, I think it's time for a reflection. Thank you.
There's so many different ways to think about the heart of me, the soul. But one thing we know is that this idea of heart is a place from which love flows. All the different shades of love, appreciation, forgiveness, compassion, tolerance, understanding. This unconditional flowing of love from the heart. And for that to be possible for the self, I need such a healthy heart that the flow of love first needs to be towards the self, from God towards the self, being able to receive those deep feelings of regard from God towards me. Regard has two meanings: to value and to be able to see. Experiencing in that divine company how deeply valuable I am as life, but also to see the potential of the self through God's eyes, to believe in the self as deeply as God believes in me. However long it takes, patiently, these are the two gifts I want to receive from God. Then the heart can unblock and start to beat again in such a healthy way. To know that I am loved, lovable, and loving. A healthy heart. Om Shanti.
Shanti. Thank you to those who joined with us and joined. Lovely thoughts I don't think I have any announcements I can think of that something's coming up, except just feel free to visit the center's website if you are interested in drop-in on-site sessions, online sessions, and please, we need part 2 for this one too. Sister Benny, if you have questions that you want to let us know, email the center. If you have any questions, I have some in mind, but if you have any that you want to explore more, please let us know. Yes, and those on Instagram, if you wish to have part 2, but since Sister Benny has requested, we certainly will next week. So please visit the center's website. You can also find the center's information about Eventbrite as well, BK Calvary. Thank you for joining with us.